The glass door slammed behind him, and David Carter didn't stop walking. His shoes hit the pavement faster than he intended, like his body was trying to escape the embarrassment before it could catch up. He gripped the folder in his hand so tightly the edges bent. "Sir, we'll contact you if we move forward." The words from the interview room echoed in his head. David exhaled slowly. "Yeah, sure you will." His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out while standing at the edge of the sidewalk. A text message. "Lily, Dad, did you get the job? I'm waiting, smiling face with smiling eyes." David stared at the message for a long moment. His throat tightened. "Not yet, kiddo," he whispered quietly. He slipped the phone back into his pocket and started walking down the street. Cars passed. People rushed by. No one noticed the man whose entire future had just collapsed inside a glass office tower. Inside his jacket pocket, his fingers brushed against folded paper. He pulled it out slowly. A crayon drawing. Two stick figures holding hands under a bright yellow sun. One was labeled Lily. The other said Dad. Underneath it, in messy purple letters, were the words, "Even if they say no, you are still my hero." David laughed quietly, but his eyes filled with tears. "Man, I wish the interview panel saw me the way you do," he muttered. Before we continue, if stories like this move you, make sure you subscribe to the channel and like the video. And by the end of this story, you'll see why a billionaire CEO ran out of his own building chasing this man. 2 hours earlier, David Carter had walked into Hayes Global Industries with hope burning inside his chest. "Good luck, Daddy," Lily had shouted that morning from their tiny kitchen table. She ran toward him holding the same colorful paper. "What's that?" David asked, kneeling down. "A lucky drawing," she said proudly. "So they know you're the best dad ever." David smiled and folded it carefully. "Well then," he laughed, "I guess I can't lose." Now he sat across from 3 interviewers in a bright conference room on the 34th floor. A woman in a gray suit studied his resume. "Mr. Carter, can you explain this gap in your employment history?" David felt his stomach tighten. He could lie. Everyone lies in interviews. But he sighed instead. "My daughter was sick," he said quietly. The man beside her leaned back slightly. "For how long?" 2 years. Another interviewer frowned. "You were unemployed for 2 years because of that." David nodded. "She needed someone with her through treatments. I was the only one she had." The woman tapped her pen on the desk. "Did you consider hiring a caregiver?" David looked directly at her. "No. Why not?" His voice stayed calm. "Because I'm her father." The interviewers exchanged quick glances. David saw the decision happen in silence. If you've ever faced a moment where honesty cost you an opportunity, comment respect below. This next moment is where everything started going wrong, or so David thought. The interview wrapped up exactly the way David feared. "Thank you for coming in today, Mr. Carter," the lead interviewer said politely. David stood and forced a smile. "I appreciate the opportunity." They shook hands. None of them held his gaze for long. As he turned toward the door, he heard one of them whisper quietly, "2-year gap is a red flag." David kept walking like he hadn't heard it. Outside the room, employees rushed between desks and meeting rooms. Everyone looked confident. Everyone looked like they belonged there. David felt invisible. When he stepped into the elevator, he leaned against the wall and closed his eyes. "All right," he muttered. "Shake it off." But the pressure was crushing him. Rent was already late. Lily needed school supplies next week. The electric bill was due. The elevator doors opened into the lobby. David walked past security and straight out of the building without looking back. Across the street, he sat on a bench and pulled Lily's drawing from his pocket again. His thumb traced the purple letters slowly. "Even if they say no," David sighed. "I'm trying, kiddo." He folded the drawing again and slid it back into his pocket. But this time, it slipped from his hand and fell beside the bench without him noticing. And that small accident was about to change everything. Inside the building, something unexpected was happening. And the man who ran that entire company was about to notice something no one else did. Inside the interview room, Maria, the receptionist, stepped in to collect leftover papers. "Another long interview day," she muttered while gathering folders. Something colorful caught her eye on the table. She picked it up. A crayon drawing. Maria smiled. "That's cute." Just then the door opened again. Jonathan Hayes walked in. Maria instantly straightened. "Good afternoon, sir." Jonathan Hayes wasn't just another executive. He was the billionaire founder of the entire company. He rarely visited interview rooms, but his eyes landed on the drawing in her hand. "What's that?" he asked. "Looks like a candidate forgot it," Maria replied. Hayes reached for it. The moment he turned the paper over, his expression changed. "Even if they say no, you're still my hero." The messy purple letters sat under two smiling stick figures. Hayes stared at it longer than Maria expected. "Whose drawing is this?" Maria checked the interview list. David Carter. He was the last candidate. Hayes looked up. "Did we hire him?" "No, sir." He frowned slightly. "Why not?" The HR manager who had just entered answered. "Large employment gap." Hayes lifted an eyebrow. "Did anyone ask why?" He said he stayed home caring for his sick daughter. The room went silent. Hayes looked back at the drawing again. Then he asked one question that changed everything. "Where is he now?" "He left a few minutes ago," the HR manager replied. Jonathan Hayes didn't hesitate. "Which direction?" "Probably toward the main street." Hayes grabbed the drawing and headed straight for the elevator. "Sir," someone called behind him, but he was already gone. Downstairs in the lobby, employees watched in confusion as their billionaire CEO walked past them faster than they had ever seen. Outside, he spotted a man halfway down the block. Worn jacket, bent shoulders. Hayes started running. "Mr. Carter, wait." David turned slowly when he heard someone shouting. He blinked in confusion as the man approached. An expensive suit, perfect tie. It took David a moment to realize who he was looking at. See, David said quietly. Hayes caught his breath and held up the drawing. "You forgot this." David's face turned red instantly. "Oh, my daughter made that." "I am sorry." Hayes studied him closely. "You said you stayed home to take care of her." David nodded. "She had cancer," he said quietly. Hayes' expression softened. "Is she okay now?" David smiled slightly. "She beat it." Hayes looked down at the drawing again. Then he said something David never expected. "Mr. Carter, the interview panel rejected you." David nodded. "I assumed." Hayes continued. "But I'm offering you a job." David froze. "A what?" "A job." Jonathan Hayes repeated calmly. David blinked, trying to process what he just heard. I don't understand." Hayes held up the drawing again. "This tells me more about you than your resume ever could." David shook his head slightly. "Sir, I'm not the most qualified candidate you interviewed." Hayes smiled faintly. "I've hired plenty of qualified people." He pointed at the drawing. "But loyalty, sacrifice, and responsibility, those are harder to find." David's voice cracked. "You'd really hire me because of that?" Hayes nodded. "Any man who puts his child before his career is someone I want in my company." David wiped his eyes quickly, embarrassed by the emotion building in his chest. "What job?" he asked quietly. Hayes extended his hand. "Operations coordinator. You'll start Monday." David stared at the hand like it wasn't real. Then he shook it. "Thank you, sir." That evening, David opened the door to his small apartment. Lily ran toward him immediately. "Dad, what happened?" David knelt and hugged her tightly. "We're going to be okay," he whispered. She pulled back with wide eyes. "Does that mean you got the job?" David smiled through tears. "Yes, kiddo, I got the job." Lily laughed and hugged him again. Sometimes life says no until the right person finally notices you. If this story touched your heart, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below where you're watching from. Your support keeps stories like this coming.